This month, the theme is the Fresh Living Challenge. So what this is about is the idea that we can make small changes that will actually significantly impact the way we feel and live in our bodies. And further, the idea is that we sometimes are better at doing things collectively than we are individually, right? And so we're taking one topic, one practice each week and committing to it. And the practice this week and the topic this week is breath. Breath. And I'm going to start out with a story. You guys know that I had some trauma as a child, and not that it takes trauma to do this, but that was the particular circumstances of my life. And one of the things that I did, and I didn't realize this until about 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago, is I learned when I was afraid to hold my breath. So I would, and then lock down my whole body and hold my breath. Well, I did not realize that I had programmed myself to do that. And so every time after that I was afraid or stressed or injured, I would hold my breath again. And what I learned this week is that not only do many of us do that, many of us in general breathe incorrectly. And by incorrectly, I don't mean that there's there's wrong breathing and right breathing. What I mean is we breathe in ways that do not benefit our overall well-being. So let me give you a couple of examples of the actual physical results of mouth breathing is the most common one. We breathe out of our mouths instead of out of our noses. Your jaw shrinks. Your jaw shrinks. So I started that breathing thing when I was around 4. By the time I was 11, my jaw was too small for the number of teeth I had, so they had to take some out. A lisp in children. Sore throats, tonsillitis, and even ear infections because we don't filter our air properly. Respiratory problems that are often misdiagnosed as asthma. And that mouth breathing makes us breathe more rapidly, which increases our appetite. It causes our body environment to be acidic. And then obviously it decreases our ability to exercise, to do cardio exercise because we're not breathing to the depth of our diaphragms. So lots of us in the world are walking around with diminished vitality out of the way that we've patterned ourselves to breathe. Now, what I know is that once I discovered that I was not breathing properly, I was breathing way up here, I was holding my breath, I began to do a breathing meditation every day. And what happened was I reprogrammed myself to breathe. I reprogrammed myself to breathe from here through here instead of way up here. And as a result of that, my body works better. Like anything else, we make a change by practicing it, right? If you notice, if you've been around here long enough, you'll notice that I usually start prayers, invocations with breathing into this moment. I use that phrase, breathing into the here and now, or take a deep breath with me. Well, there is a long tradition of the use of the breath in different spiritual traditions to unify with the presence of God or our awareness of the presence of God. Because, you can't not be unified with God or Spirit, but you can not be aware of it. All right, so every single spiritual tradition has some element that equates breath with spirit. There's a fellow named Dan Brule, and his whole work in the world is about spirituality and breathing. And he says that most of the ancient languages use the same word for air, wind, or breath as they do for life, vital energy, or spirit. Just as one example, and I love, there's something beautiful and elegant about this to me. I don't know why. In the Hebrew Bible, the word ruach means wind, breath, mind, and spirit. And in humankind, it denotes the principle of life that possesses reason. Related to God, ruach refers to the creative activity and power of spirit. You see, so there's this beautiful thing about the breath. And nothing is more powerful to bring us into a present moment awareness. Nothing is more powerful. And there's something really interesting about the breath, too. It is the only brainstem function that we can readily... Now, anything in your brainstem, your body does automatically. Okay, that's the oldest part of your brain. It's the most vital to your physical survival. Anything that goes on in the brainstem happens without your needing to focus on it. So you don't have to think about your heartbeat. You don't have to think about passing certain pathways through your brain to execute the function of breathing, of heartbeat. And yet, breathing is the only brainstem function that readily can be controlled consciously and unconsciously. So we can actually take over and breathe on purpose. But if we quit breathing on purpose, we will breathe automatically. And the cool thing about that is that in our philosophy, in the science of mind and spirit, we say that we are co-creating all the time. Right? So we are co-creating with the creative process of life. We are creating our experiences, creating our circumstances, whether we like them or not. And the whole idea is that we become conscious and choose what to create. You see, so there's this parallel between breathing, which goes on unconsciously, unless we choose to do it consciously, and the way that we are out picturing our lives. We are either doing that unconsciously out of habit or consciously out of choice. Right? So the idea, we in the science of mind and spirit, we join with all of the other spiritual traditions of the world in understanding that there is something powerfully metaphorical about the breath. Ernest Holmes, who was the founder of the science of mind, said, trained thought is more powerful than untrained thought. Trained thought is more powerful than untrained thought. And so I would further suggest that trained breath is more powerful than untrained breath. So let's look a second at why that is. It's an interesting thing to me. Let me say this. It's an interesting thing to me. We teach that consciousness is cause. In other words, what goes on in here causes our life experience. And I absolutely believe that. to the depth of my being. And yet, 18 years ago, when I got sober, what they told me, because I was insane, what they told me was, bring the body and the mind will follow. Which seems to be opposite, right? So consciousness is cause I make a change at the level of consciousness, and it shows up in my physical experience, in the experience I'm having of the world. That's one thing, and I believe it to the depth of my being. And then over here, my experience to the depth of my being was that I could bring the body and the mind would follow. And in some ways, those two views they seem to be at odds with each other. So what I eventually learned in reconciling those two truths is that it's a wheel, and I can enter the wheel anywhere. I can enter the wheel at the level of behavior, or I can enter the wheel at the level of consciousness. Once I'm on the wheel, it gets easier to stay on the wheel. Right? And this is really cool where the breath is concerned, because when you teach somebody how to breathe properly, they actually then, when they take over that process, they learn to, they calm themselves down. Their blood pressure can go down, heart rate slows, all of those things just as a result of teaching them a behavior. But the other effect of that behavior is that the mind settles down. The mind. Not the brain, although that does settle too, but you know the monkey mind that some of us have a little bit of? You can actually tame your inner monkey brain with breath. There's a quote, and I couldn't find the source for this quote, but I really loved it. When you own your breath, nobody can steal your peace. When you own your breath, nobody can steal your peace. We have our bodies are amazing things, and we have something, everybody is familiar with the fight or flight response, right? Right? When we get scared, this very ancient part of our brain takes over. Well, that part of the brain, the part of our system that does that is called the sympathetic nervous system. And for every action, there has to be a system to undo the action. So you have the fight or flight, which is the sympathetic, and then you have the rest and digest, which is the parasympathetic. When you teach yourself to breathe, you affect a nerve called the vagus nerve, which goes all the way down your torso. And you can put yourself into a parasympathetic response. You see, on every level, on the system, at the level of the systems of our body, the level of our mind work, and the level of consciousness, we are affected by the breath. I'm really suspicious. Have you ever, there's lots of advertisements out there that are like, change your life in 5 minutes a day. Do this one thing and it'll change your life. Well, I think those are cheap and ridiculous. I mean, I've done 18 years of recovery, 15 years of therapy, 12 years of science of mind, and my life is still changing, but none of it happened in 10 minutes. But 10 minutes every day, that's a different story. And that's the whole point of this month, is that these little tiny changes that we make, when practiced regularly, have actually profound effects on the way we live and the way that we feel in our own bodies. I want to tell you one final I want to leave you with this thought, and then we're actually going to do a breathing meditation. And the final thought is that the beautiful thing about learning to come conscious through the breath is that anything that we practice and master that then becomes the new thing that happens unconsciously, you know what I mean? Right? So we've done something consciously to change what wasn't working unconsciously, and we've done it enough that that's our new subconscious, and we don't have to focus on it anymore. Anything that we master becomes transferable to another area. And this is huge, because in the example of breathing, I am going to sit for 10 minutes a day, and I'm going to practice just being aware of the air as it enters my nose. And I become aware that I am in training and training myself, right? So I'm breathing on purpose until I'm just breathing. That kind of change applies in any area of our lives. So it might be over here where I'm, let's say I want to go to the gym, or I want to eat 3 servings of vegetables and 2 servings of fruit in a day. I consciously use my intention and attention until I don't need to use it anymore. And my body-mind knows how to do that because I've practiced it with this one thing called the breath. You see, the skill is transferable. Change your breathing, change your life. So I'm going to invite you all into a little practice of this. Get comfortable in your chairs, preferably with your legs uncrossed, feet on the ground. Now, with everything uncrossed, hands on your knees, feet on the ground, allow your eyes to gently close. And allow your gaze to fall downward. Now, if possible, you want to close your mouth. If you can breathe freely through your nose, close your mouth. And allow your jaw muscles to become slack. Just see them melting. Now, at your own pace, I want you to inhale and exhale a couple of 3 or 4 times. Now bring your attention to the very tip of your nose. And as you breathe in and out, just become aware of the air passing the tip of your nose I'm not trying to control it or influence it. Just notice. And if you feel your mind wandering, gently return your attention to the gentle sensation of breathing. Begin now to return your attention to the room, the chair, maybe wiggle your hands a little bit. Now open your eyes when you're ready. Our home practice this week is to do this very thing for 10 minutes. So in other words, to sit and consciously breathe for 10 minutes. Now, Jereva and Sarah are going to pass out the commitment cards. I want to tell you how to fill them out because I forgot to do that the first week. The first line, you write your name. The second line, you sign your name. What's the third line, Jereva?
Email address.
Yes. The third line is for your email address. If you put that on there, what you will get every day in the morning is an affirmation that goes with this week's theme. You are, of course, not required to sign the card. But if you're willing to commit to the practice itself for 10 minutes every day with your community, then please do, and you can just drop them in the offering basket when it comes around. So let's move now into prayer. There's a Sanskrit proverb that says, "For breath is life, and if you breathe well, you live well." What I know is that life is not always easy. And because of that, especially because of that, we ought to take it easy where we can get it. And what is easy is to do this simple practice. To align ourselves with the whole creative activity of the universe simply by breathing. For using the breath, we can come home to ourselves in a way we never thought we could. And it's only in this place of coming home, coming present, that we experience the divine. What I know is that there is one life. That life is God's life. That life is the life of each of us, and it is present in its entirety, in every cell, every system, every center of each of us. That life is good. That life is balance. That life is harmony. That life is beauty. And that life is for us. That life is in us. That life is us. And we have been given this extraordinary privilege of co-creating that life with God. So take a deep breath with me. Say yes to life. Yes to breath. And just yes. And so it is.